You are now listening to Thinking Out Loud with your hosts, J. Lip and J.Rhodes.
Thinking out loud, you know what this is, you know who I am. It's your boy J Lip. We back at it yet again. First and foremost, before we get into it, I want to give all prayers to the families of the victims of the shooting that occurred this week in Las Vegas. Crime is a crime, no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, no matter what you believe in. Taking a life is wrong, and we appreciate the fact that God made things happen to eliminate the person who committed that travesty of a crime, taking the lives of those innocent folk. But in the same breath, we want to thank God and give him all the praise and the glory to say, we just pray for those families that they can recover from the pain that they're going to feel and that they're going through in mourning their loss. Now, with that being said, I want to start this shit off right. Introducing my bro, J.Rhodes, representing the Shy. Of course, Detroit, but by way of Chicago. J.Rhodes, was good?
Man, I'm ready to get right into it this time.
Ash, representing D.C. Ashley, what's going on?
I'm here. I'm ready to get started.
And I got the big homie, my big bro from Columbus, Ohio, representing that OH all day. C-Fri. C-Fri, what's good, homie?
How you feeling tonight? I'm doing good.
All right, bro. I thank you for joining us. And it's kind of a somber tone. Unfortunately, we needed to have this conversation because there's a lot going on in the world. And so we're just going to dive straight into it. The major topic for this evening is crime in America. American crime. What's going on?
I got some crickets, though. I swear we outside by a campfire. I swear.
All right, so I'm gonna apologize to anybody that is listening right now. We got a little outdoors session going on. We do what we can. We're trying to focus on what's important right now, though. Today is a very somber day because, again, like I said, we've suffered a tragedy as a country, but what I want to do is kind of shed some light and bring a dialogue to the table of some things that have been an underlying issue as far as how we view crime in America. One of the topics I want to dive straight into first is terrorist versus Madman. Now, if you go to foxnews.com right now, shout out to foxnews.com, one of the most one-sided websites that I've ever witnessed as far as a news publication is concerned. They're counting the individual who killed at least 50 people, injured at least 200 others as a madman.
500 others.
Let us know. So it's an update. So it's 500 been injured?
500 injured, 58 killed last time I checked.
58 have lost their lives. Over 500 have been injured by this lunatic that they are now identifying as a madman. What I'd like to discuss is the whole topic of a terrorist versus a madman. As far as I'm concerned, there is terrorism both domestic and abroad, correct?
Facts.
Okay, so why is it that we have a distinction when it comes to our news sources as far as calling someone a terrorist given XYZ criteria versus a madman ABC criteria? I want to toss that to you, Rhodes.
I think the difference is, the way I understand it, that a terrorist represents a larger organization or a faction. So thus terrorists, and they usually have some type of agenda, some type of cause that they're fighting for or killing for, as opposed to a madman does seem like a one-off individual lone wolf outlier aberration type of event.
Okay, so you believe there's a distinction between the two? Because to me, a terrorist is a madman, and a madman is a terrorist.
Well, I would agree with Rhodes on this one. It's a terrorist represents a cause or a group, but if you just have someone that has went mad, as they would say,
what does went mad though? What does that mean? Went mad?
I mean, that's kind of like very subjective term, a label, because a lot of times they'll say that a dictator or even a leader of organizations, he's a madman. They say Donald Trump is a madman. I can't necessarily argue with that. But like I said, a terrorist group usually has some type of strong religious or moral basis for their cause, and the people who follow them aren't necessarily mad either. They may not be brainwashed or persuaded, but at the same time, they truly believe in that, and I don't think it has anything to do with like mental illness.
I think there are some distinctions between the two, but there are also a lot of similarities. And
let's focus on the distinguishing factors between the two. What are the differences to you between a terrorist and a madman? When the media tells us we're dealing with a terrorist attack versus a lone wolf or a madman attack, what's the difference to you?
I think J-Rose and Ash kind of hit on that, and a lot of those terms that they use kind of, I share the same sentiment. I think when it comes to terrorists, you're dealing more with like a group or you're dealing with a cause. But again, they could use the same language and say a madman has done a terrorist act. I guess it depends on the number of people involved, both on both sides.
I gotta challenge you on that. Go ahead, Ash.
I'm actually looking at the definition, which we seem to like to do here. It's a person who uses unlawful violence and intimidation, especially against civilians in the pursuit of political aims. So you may have a point there. I mean, it could be anyone, but at the same time, I think the biggest differentiator is having a larger agenda, right? So if this guy, the murderer, whomever his name is, if he did it in the name of capitalism or, racism or whatever the case, then that's terrorism. But if he just did it for whatever reason that didn't have a larger platform or a larger political aim, then it wouldn't be that.
Okay, so if I'm understanding y'all clearly, a terrorist being the subject of the crime is basically a person who represents some type of greater goal versus a madman who literally is someone who is literally mad. Like he's suffering from psychosis. He has some type of mental disability or some type of challenge that he has as a lone wolf, quote unquote. So the definitions that we've been given from the media are correct then.
Seemingly so.
That's very difficult to receive. I personally, I feel like terrorism can happen both domestically and abroad. So if you have a terrorist who represents ISIS and they do a bombing in a location and they take claim for that, then we call that terrorism. Now, if someone that is quote unquote a lone wolf, someone who commits a crime or a series of murders within our country, we call that a madman if he doesn't have anything to base his foundation of his decisions off of. So if we don't have a manifesto, we don't have any notes, we don't have any type of letters he wrote stating this is what I'm going to do and this is what I represent, we call that a madman because we have nothing else to correlate his actions to. That's how I feel.
Exactly. They're not trying to. So a lot of the reasons why ISIS and the other terrorist groups commit these crimes is so that you can pay attention to their agendas and what their acts are.
That sounds synonymous with protesting, though.
Yeah, it is a form of protesting, for sure. Definitely. I mean, when you think about what America has done in some of those Islamic or Middle Eastern countries, it is a part of protesting, and I'm not endorsing the terrorism, but at the same time they want to be heard and they want things to change. Regardless of what it's in the name of, we have to look at both sides.
I can see that, and I can also see how maybe a madman could be considered a terrorist. Sometimes that, madmen that are acting as lone wolves can still be viewed as terrorists in the eyes of the media. By saying like this act of terror was done to this school and it could have been a lone person, and I don't think they necessarily had a political agenda with their violence. It was just a string of violence.
I guess we all in agreement where madman and terrorist can be interchangeable depending on what they represent. Is that what I'm taking away from this?
Definitely.
I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, we come to a consensus on terrorist versus madman, and I agree with that. A terrorist is someone who represents a cause. A madman is someone who's just literally mad in the brain, and that kind of segues into the next topic, which is hate versus insanity. Now, we know in America we have a classification for hate crimes, quote unquote. So we have hate crimes that have been judicially defined as crimes against humanity for a specific purpose of race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, etc. And then you have what we call just a crime, which is just somebody doing some fuck shit just to be a criminal. And then you have insanity, which is kind of the cop out that we give to a certain group of individuals where we say, you know what, they just lost their mind, they didn't know what they was doing, they had a momentary lapse of judgment. And how do we receive that as the black community? Because we don't always get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to having that lapse of judgment or having that insanity. It's usually a crime against humanity for us. And I'll give y'all some examples. Okay, so Dylan Roof, he ran up in the church, he shot the folks up, he came out, they said he was insane. Now there's a group of people who believe that that was a hate crime. He had hate in his blood for people of color. He represented that on his social media, representing the Confederate flag, talked about it. He didn't have a manifesto, but he definitely had the breadcrumbs that would lead one to believe that he just had a hatred for black people, and actually said that he was hoping to start a race riot in America. So is that a hate crime or is that insanity? Or do they coincide? I don't know. That's why I'm
It's
asking.
definitely a hate crime, and just like everything else in America, we have these subdued, softer terms for the, in quotes, majority. And when I say majority, I mean white people. And it's frustrating because we all know it was a hate crime. He blatantly said it was a hate crime. He hated niggers or whatever he said. And he literally shot 8 people dead. And to label him as insane is disrespectful to those who died and disrespectful to the culture.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah, I agree too. I mean, but obviously that's where the loopholes in our justice system lie, where a good defense attorney will try to use that as a defense mechanism to try to keep him off death row or get a lighter sentence,
But I think calling him insane is, like Ash said, is disrespectful, because if you think about it, he went in there, and it could also be considered a form of terrorism based on the definition, because he went in there with an agenda.
I agree.
And a political agenda to start a race war. I mean, you go into a black church and kill black parishioners and walk out. That's part, and a lot of that has to do with the way the media wants to perceive white criminals and black criminals. I think, when they make those terms and they say, well, he was insane, it's a dismissive term that basically says he didn't know what he was doing. He wasn't mentally aware of what he was doing. He was insane at the time. And I think that just goes to help perpetuate the stereotypes that they use on black people and the ones they don't use on white people.
So there's
That's powerful.
So there's a racial aspect to it.
Most definitely, especially in terms of the media and the way they portray black criminals and white criminals. I think, and especially with this Dylan Roof case, when they showed his images to the, when the media displayed his images, they didn't show him like in handcuffs, or they didn't show the negative views of him the way they do like when black people, and I hate to jump topics, but like when black people are murdered by police officers, whether they had a criminal record or not, they always seem to show like a mug shot and say their charges, whether they're felonies or misdemeanors. It doesn't absolve them from not being guilty by whoever stops them and kills them. But the labels that the media puts on these people helps, perpetuate how we as citizens view them.
That's funny that you say that, because I'm on Facebook now and somebody posted a meme. It was an article from the Washington Post, and it says, and I'm a little bit ashamed of this, it says Las Vegas gunman Stephen Paddock enjoyed gambling, country music, lived quiet life before massacre. And the meme was, exactly, it said white privilege is committing the largest shooting in American history, and being fondly memorialized as a country music fan. Like, that's crazy.
That is crazy.
If it was a black man or any other man that wasn't white, it would be gunman, drugs, sold drugs. It's always this
mass murderer.
Yeah, exactly. Mass murderer, wore black hoodie,
felon, or multiple career criminal, because he may have had 3 tickets that he didn't pay. And now he's a career criminal.
Yeah.
But they didn't say, that he likes enjoying hip hop and R&B music in his spare time. The media will portray black people and people of color a lot differently than they will Caucasians and people of non-color.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into that for a second, since we already jumped the gun. Why is that? Why do we feel like we live in a society? And I'm gonna let you spark it off, Rhodes. Why is it that we live in a society in 2017 where we actually are condoning a society where we are judged by the skin color to define the intent of the crime?
I think it goes all the way back. Like there's images of when black people were lynched, and there's a mob there watching it, and it's like little girls, like little white girls and little white boys in that in that setting, in that crowd. And anybody take standard, if you saw somebody get hanged, even if it was a dog, you wouldn't let little kids look at that. You say, "Oh my God, turn away! Turn away! Don't look at that." But that's how throughout history they have desensitized the mass population, white people, by thinking that we are less than them, and our lives don't mean as much. And then that whole notion has become perpetuated and evolved through the inner city violence, because that's nothing. They say, well, black people, they indulge in drugs, they kill themselves, they do all these things. They live in
violence. All
exactly. They live in an environment. They're animals. They're animals. They're less than us. That has been going on since the beginning of African Americans or black people in this country. So when you see it on the news, they have to desensitize you. And I can't even blame the media entirely, because the media is getting this information from somebody, whether it's the police department or some investigator beat. But obviously, these media outlets are controlled by usually corporations, imperialists who have an agenda to obviously appeal to their shareholders and their audience demographic. So if you can emasculate and defame the image of the African American or even the minorities to the point where it's like, oh my God, like that's why I don't go in those urban neighborhoods. That's because look at them, they're shooting. 41 people shot in the weekend in Chicago. Oh my God, they're just crazy down there. I pray for black people. I don't get them, but then at the same time, we don't have as catastrophic events like this. We might have more frequent, smaller events. We don't have this.
Ash, go ahead.
I can't say that. When you say that 41 was shot in Chicago in a weekend, that's a lot.
That's a lot, but that's not one single individual. That's what I'm saying. Like there's not one individual who's like, there's no.
That actually makes it worse. And the reason why I say that is because that means that there's a whole collective of people that are truly shooting 41 people dead, like their own people. So it's a toss up. I know it's like, okay, wait a minute. They perpetuate the violence, but when you actually live in which I think you understand this, live in it, you see it, and 41 people getting murdered, regardless if it was one man doing it or five.
Well, I said shot, not murdered, but go ahead.
Okay, but I've seen 41 people murdered in Chicago. Like that's a real thing. That's not like far off.
Right.
So that's actually really, really bad. And the fact that it doesn't get the attention that it should get, the same attention that this got. You know why? Because it's a tragedy.
Well, I'm gonna disagree, because I think it did get attention. But here's how we spin it. So when Chicago was having all those mass shootings last summer, Trump, and even this summer, Trump, I'm going to send the government down there. We're going to send the police down there. We're going to police those. We've had podcasts about this, about Trump and his whole notion of policing the inner cities, right?
Right, the first one, right?
Right, yeah, right. So, but now we have this guy right here, which, Trump did condemn and said it was an evil act or whatever, what I'm saying? But the thing is, typically minorities do not have the privilege, the access to the massive weapons of mass destruction, or the fortitude.
What?
Or the fortitude.
Please explain that, because
you
lost me on that one.
Guns are dropped off in our neighborhood.
Right.
I was getting ready to say that.
Hold on, C-Fri, go.
Go ahead, C-Fri, go ahead.
I was just getting ready to say that the reason it's probably not advertised as much or put in the media as much is because the guns get there some way. And to be honest with you, I think the agenda of the government in that aspect is to let them kill each other.
Exactly.
I don't think
and when you say let them, you say let us kill each other.
Us. Exactly, but I was speaking from the terms of the government, but exactly. I don't want to say let us kill each other, but that's probably exactly how they feel. And why would they try to bring all these people to justice? Because if they're left out there, they're going to continue doing what they ultimately want them to do anyway.
Exactly.
Okay, my point is, trying to wrap this up real quick. You don't see black people planting bombs at marathons. You don't see black people blowing up buildings. You don't see black people doing anthrax and stuff like that. You might see some Eastern, Eastern Indian.
Hold on, Rose. You named like 3 different very isolated incidences over the course of 3 decades. Like when you bring up anthrax, like come on, bro. Like we can't let's not use these ancillary terms as far as when people actually chemically engineered biochemical warfare to infiltrate the government. Like that's not anthrax wasn't going to the hood. But what is going to the hood are the guns and the drugs.
Exactly.
Right,
And
right,
that's
The
right.
guns and the
killing mass
drugs.
amounts of people in a
Exactly.
weekend.
Exactly.
500 in a summer,
Getting people
700 in
high.
a summer.
Yes.
That's
Getting
crazy.
people
That
high,
should
getting
that should
people
be
drunk,
headline.
and
I
giving them
mean, but
Right.
guns, and then just
we need to
letting them
keep the
go.
focus on. You need to keep the focus on the origin. Okay, the origin is it's not us who's bringing this stuff in. It's not us who are
But anthrax
perpetuating this
isn't
stuff.
but you being disingenuous when you say that because you brought up anthrax.
I did bring up anthrax,
But
but
what
what I'm
black
saying
person
is
is associated with anthrax?
that's my point. That's my point. We're not associated with these large scale terrorist attacks. That's what I'm trying to say.
Because we're doing numbers every weekend. That's
But
why.
Exactly. They
but
don't need to
also too,
waste their time on that.
but we're also not going out killing other races for whatever
That's
type of.
even worse.
I'm
Dog.
not
Oh
trying
my
to say
God.
it's better or worse. What I'm saying is black people. You don't see black people saying like, man, this one black dude, he just went up and shot a whole golf course up. He went and shot up a whole building up. You know what I'm saying? You might hear a post office
Right,
once in a
because
while.
we look for soft targets. We target our own soft targets.
Right.
Easy. I go up
Target
to
your own. Wow.
exactly.
That's
Where do
powerful.
I try to bring it to the most basic essence that I can with the whole framework of riots. We never say, you know what? I'm tired of how shit is going down in Detroit, so I'm gonna go riot Birmingham, or I'm gonna go riot Farmington Hills, or I'm gonna go
We talked
riot
about
Livonia.
that. But by the
But
time you drive out there, you don't feel that way anymore.
But I'm saying the whole point is there are riots and there's destruction in the community that those people who have that aggression reside
Mm.
in. So
And
that
there was this post on Facebook that said they should be happy that we don't want revenge. And it's kind of weird to me that black people will kill their own, but nobody wants to get revenge. Like nobody wants to go Nat Turner style. Nobody
Right.
wants, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so
as the
you
re-
want to target your own, but
that
you don't want to go against them.
No. See, I disagree with that because the thing is, there's no clear oppressors now. You know, we can.
uh,
No, there aren't. We can stress that a lot of the systematic racism and things like that are perpetuated by the white ruling class. But you can't go to every white person at your job and say, "I hate you, you're evil," because they're not.
No, but I'm saying when you talk about the police or the racists or Charlotte or all of these different people who are blatantly saying that I hate black people or people of color, why don't we have these gangsters and thugs and these armies in the south side of Chicago going
Right.
against the people that really they should be
Right.
going after?
Right.
exactly.
I agree with that. And I actually read a post that said that. That said, why don't we get some of these brothers
Fake
from
ass
Chicago that don't mind
This
killing
ain't
each
Suicide
other.
Squad. This ain't Suicide Squad, man. You
Right.
can't.
But as a form of justice that we don't receive in the judicial system, whereas a white officer could get off from killing an unarmed black man multiple times, why don't they get their justice served to them? They get paid vacation
Yep.
and
Administrative leave.
they get
But
all
the
of the
system is gonna take care of them. I see that's gonna happen. You're gonna take care of your own. But I'm talking about these gangsters. Like you want to
street
kill
system.
yourself.
No, then well,
And
There-
Rose,
When I
before
look
you
at my
before you
brother,
respond,
that's myself.
and before you respond, I just want to say real quick, Rose, what you're saying, this isn't suicide. You said this is not Suicide Squad, but
right,
what it is Homicide Squad against our own people.
right, but okay, but okay.
It really is Suicide Squad
it's
because
not okay. But let's take a step back. Like, there's a reason why it's not good reasons,
But
there
but
are,
then what is the
there,
point of a reason if it's not a good reason?
you know what I'm saying? But you guys are simplifying it like, oh, these people are just killers, so let them kill for a good purpose or a better purpose. These people who are raised in dire situations, they grew up in a culture that didn't promote anything, it didn't promote self-worth or self-benefit, self-betterment, and they're defending territory, they're defending drug trade, they're defending their source of income and resources. I'm not saying it's smart, I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but they're defending what they believe in. They're defending their Crenshaw, their Wild Huntings, whatever their territory that they quote unquote defend, that they claim. That's what they're defending.
You just defined Dylan Roof's entire message right there.
But that's what I'm
He's
saying.
defending his heritage. He's defending his white heritage in America by starting a race war because he knows that there's more white people with guns than black people with guns. So they can wipe us out at any moment. So you just defended his
I'm not defending.
intention.
I'm saying that I'm not defending anything. I'm saying that there is a truth to that. Everyone has a reason or a cause behind what they do. It has nothing to do. It doesn't mean I agree with what he said.
No,
I'm just
you
saying
defended it by giving it a supporting argument and saying that it's because he's defending what he's doing. But in my mind, he's defending the wrong thing. We have to be able to realize and
I didn't
say,
say it was the right thing though. And don't be a hypocrite. 'Cause we just talked about this. That's the difference between a madman and a terrorist. They all believe in what they quote unquote do.
okay, so talk about being a hypocrite. We both said that they're the same, though. A madman can be a hypocrite and can be a terrorist.
Okay, so what you want to do? Get rid of all of them? You want to talk to them and change their ideas? I mean, you can't change them. They feel that way.
To be honest, I don't think there's any talking to them.
Okay, so you want to
Why-
round them up and set them loose on white people you hate.
I'm gonna let C-Fri go.
I was just gonna say, just jumping back into that. I'm curious why a black man that would go shoot up a church full of white parishioners would be
Exactly. That's what I want to know. That's
Or
what I want to know.
they get that label instead
Get
of being
him. Get him.
a madman or being termed insane. They're considered to be a thug or
Yes, get
a
him.
menace. They use those poor words, those words that just they use to define black people because you don't
Exactly.
see that when it's a white criminal. You don't.
Exactly.
They use madman and insane. They're like one-offs, but they don't get that negative connotation with
Yeah, they
that.
get the undesirables. The undesirables.
My thing is
Mhm.
and this isn't just with thugs and all of that, but this is just people in general. White people are praised and honored and special and just all of these great things, right? And our black people, again, they embody that. And I know it's gonna take a long time to undo what has been done. But when I'm saying there's some fundamental institutionalized problems that we feel like we're nothing without white people, white anything, and I have a problem with that. And if
White people are the upper echelon, though. They're the goal. They're the
Whoa,
trophy.
whoa.
But
I'm talking about
they-
no. Stop.
whoa.
I'm saying in response to what Ashley's saying, culturally, that's how a lot of people witness white people to be. The upper echelon, the cultural trophy. That's why on previous episodes, Rose, we talked about the fact that
I wouldn't
we
use
move
culture. I
out.
might use economic, but not
Okay,
cultural.
okay, let's say economic. That's why on previous episodes we've talked about once a person of color reaches a certain economic standard, they move out of the environment where they're surrounded by people that look like them to people that look nothing like them.
Right.
So there's a
But it
fact
doesn't
behind
happen in the
that
other race. It doesn't happen the other way around.
because
So it doesn't?
we are still we are still represented as far as that economic standard that Rhodes was referring to as the bottom. No one would ever want to succumb to the bottom if they've already reached the top.
So we look to them for validation then. We need to be
No,
validated
we look
by
at each other for
like
validation, and I think that
We don't.
no, there's
We
a
don't.
no, there's a
No,
lot
no,
of
no.
black people. Hold on, this is my opinion. There's a lot of black people that think that there's a level of validation when it comes to reaching out and embracing other cultures. Point blank, period. I would like to use Exhibit A. Every other black athlete or entertainer that has grown to withdraw themselves away from their person of color who's their counterpart that supported them on their journey to reach success, and then of course they trade that in for someone not of color or an quote unquote exotic person to be that person that they continue to build a relationship and build a life with. That's
Right. So
reality.
you just confirmed our point that
No, I
white
agree
is
with
right.
you though. No, not white is right because I said not a person of color. What I'm saying is there's an exotic atmosphere when it comes to you look at the Kardashians, you look at these people who have no value more or less than their counterparts of a different race, but for some reason, Kanye West, prime example, had a girlfriend, he talked about her, she was an AKA, still repping the dynasty sign, rapped about her, put her in a song. All of a sudden, when he gets with Kim Kardashian, well, first off, when he gets with Amber Rose, he's like, okay, that's my queen, that's my red, blah, blah,
Amber
blah.
Rose is of black descent, though.
Okay, but then what does he say when he gets with Kim? He says, he said I had to take 1,000 showers before I could be ready for Kim Kardashian. that shows you the mentality of the race disparity of value.
It's not only race, it's the fact that Kim is a multimillionaire.
Yeah,
There are a lot of aspects
Uh,
to it, and I would be, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say it's just race with that one.
right.
Um,
Status
but
too.
I
It's
think it's a
status.
part.
it's
But Ash,
status,
but
it's
isn't it a
fame.
part of it though? Isn't it really a part of it though? Like we don't even know who Kanye West's girlfriend was when he was rapping about Through the Wire. When he was representing his girlfriend, we don't even know who she is. If you
Because
want
she
to,
didn't have the status, unfortunately. I'm not saying
okay,
that
well
she's not
Tori
a
Hart
great
has a
woman.
Tori Hart has a status, and Kevin Hart admittedly cheated on her. Got with a new chick. She was a little bit lighter. Then, of course, he cheated on her with someone who's lighter than her. Like there's a certain transgression of skin tone, which is kind of like that final bubble of this conversation, which I want to dive into, which is there a disparity between our perception of tone, skin wise, skin color, tone, and race that we raise to be the bar of the upper echelon?
Well, throughout most countries, not just America, the lighter you are,
Don't
the
defend it.
I'm not defending.
Get him,
This is a
Ashley.
fact. This
Please
is a
get him.
fact.
Please
This is
get
not an
him.
opinion. This is a fact. In most countries, the lighter you are, the more associated you are with wealth and education. It is like that in America too. Unfortunately, we view lighter skin, even in our colored faction, as being more beautiful, more likable, better quality hair. I'm not saying all these things are real. I'm saying, but that is the perception they have perpetuated throughout history. So, to
Who
your
is they?
point,
Who is they?
white media. I'm gonna call it that. White media.
It's not just white media, it's just white. And that, I mean, if I was a white imperialist who wanted social control and power over everyone, of course I would do that. Of course I would say white is the most powerful, most beautiful thing in the world. So anything that's below white is not enough. It's brilliant. It's
Yes.
brilliant. They're
Wickedly, they
fucking
call it
brilliant.
wickedly brilliant. That's what they call it.
Wickedly brilliant.
That's
Exactly.
Jim Crow, though. That's
But
from back in the day when they
that's how they
put
did
black
it.
people against black people based on skin tone and complexion, like the house nigger versus the field nigger debate. It was all based on skin tone and producing a divide in the black community.
Mm-hmm.
And that's still being carried on today to the point where we as black people have accepted that Jim Crow, whether we
That's Willie Lynch.
acknowledge it or not, whether we acknowledge it, that's still something that we all kind of view, and it may be behind closed doors, but we all kind of do it, and that's like ingrained in us in a sense.
I don't do it.
But it is subconscious for a lot of people, though. Ashley, though it is.
Right.
I
And I
mean,
just want to
if your mind is, if you're not, let me take that back. Never mind.
No, Ash. This is thinking out loud. Please share your thoughts. Just say what you feel.
If you really are about your people and about what's right, regardless, like if you're really about what's right, that won't even come to your mind.
Nah,
Like
it might come to your mind.
And the reason why I say that is because my family is full of, like, I have lighter, my grandma is lighter, my mom is lighter than me, my dad is darker, whatever the case. But not one time did my grandma, and she's 95, never did she make us feel like we were, that never came up, like skin tone and,
but
this and that.
society put that on you. I mean,
But you gotta be stronger than that, though.
Okay, Ash. Let me go. C-Fri. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and kudos to your grandma for that, because that's what we need in our communities, is to have someone basically of our own color tell us that our skin tone doesn't make us better or less than someone else of a different skin tone. Mm-hmm. But when a lot of the images that we get through media or the words that we hear on radio or just society as a whole, that is apparent, and it's there. There is a divide there, and media perpetuates it. I feel that way.
Yeah.
I feel like they do try to pit us against each other, and they do try to make black people look more harmful than they really are. They want people to fear that and feel like, oh, they get what they deserve because they're bad people.
And C-Fri, you really can't, like, as hard as it is for me to say this, we can't even put all the onus on the media or the social class, because there's a point to what Lip said. When you if you're like a traditional black person, brown skin, dark skin, whatever, or even light skin, you're just black, and you come from a hard community, you grind your way up, whether it's through education, you got a good job, whether it's sports or entertainment. And what do you see? You see a lot of entertainers and athletes and successful people, they ditch the black girl and they get with somebody who may not be white, but they could be of another ethnicity, which is very fair skinned. And we have that notion like, oh, why he ain't get a black woman? Why he ain't marry a black woman? He was with the black woman before. Why he ain't with a black woman? It's because they see now like, okay, I've come from this bottom, and the people who were like me, they didn't have the fortitude or the discipline to raise up. So every woman that I came in contact with unfairly, they put them in a box and like, oh, they're just looking for a handout, or they haven't figured it out yet. But this other woman from another culture, another country, another society upbringing, they get me. I feel like I'm being accepted. So it is partial validation, but it's also a little bit of animosity and self-judgment and self-hate too, I think, too.
I agree.
Can I just touch on it for a second?
No,
just saying
do your thing. Go ahead.
I think a lot of that has to do with also what is being displayed. Because for instance, if you're at an award show, yeah, Kevin Hart might be the hot one now, or whoever's the it guy right now, and they might show that couple because of how they are as a couple. But you might not see Samuel Jackson, who's a legend and is married to a black woman. They might not show them together, or you know what I mean? They feed you what they want you to see, what they want you to know. So you might say, well, how come there aren't many black people with black people? And it's not that there aren't, it's just that they don't show you. They don't want you to see that black love. They don't want you to see that black families do exist and they do survive.
That's a great point.
They show you, they want you to know.
But I'm going to flip it though too, because I'm going to put a lot of pressure on men too. Like for example, 50 Cent, his first child is with a black woman, and he has a strained relationship with his son. He basically, he I didn't even know he had a son all through high school, from truth be told. But now that he has a second son with this Asian black mixed chick, his son all over Instagram. Granted, I love that he's being a father, but there is a huge disconnect between his relationship between his first son and his second son.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
But I think that's to his point that he's all over Instagram because that's what the people want to see, right?
Nah,
like,
Ash.
No. Hold on. Let me finish. It's my opinion. So if that's what people want to see, like it's gonna be perpetuated. And what he's probably done, he probably has a relationship with his son, whatever the case may be, but he's not mixed or whatever. So he's not going to put him on the media platform that everybody likes.
Actually, I got to say that's false, because if you look at the history of 50 and his first son, that's not the case. He wasn't ashamed of his son because of his skin color. He was ashamed of his son because of the way that his baby's mother treated him and brainwashed his son.
Okay, that's just one out of many.
But you said though, and I'm just trying to make sure I quote you correctly, that's the perception that is out there as far as how one would treat X versus Y. All I'm trying to say is that's not the perception that it has to be. If we say we want to see people of color continue to thrive with people of color, will that make those people in position to show us, quote unquote, show us in social media the way?
Yes. I guarantee.
Okay, so how do you impact them? So how do you impact them? How do you make 50 or Kanye or Lamar Odom or LeBron James? Well, he's good.
Savage 21.
How do you make Savage 21 not walk out?
No, actually, not Travis Scott.
Travis Scott, how do you make any of these black men that we just named, this random emporium of black men, how do you make them know that we would love to see you continue to support the black, quote unquote, black queen that we want to see you with, so that we can feel represented in our community? How do we
just like what you're doing right now? If people, I guarantee it, I know how it all works. If everybody commented and said,
you ain't got all the answers, Ash.
Okay, but I know how
you ain't got all the answers, Ash.
Works, and I know how PR works. If everybody got in on their computers and said, you know what, we don't like seeing mixed couples. We want to see.
That's racist, though. You can't say that.
No, and I'm not saying that I endorse that, but I'm just telling you what people would say.
You're saying that that's what we need to do, but that's racist.
Wait a minute. That's not what I'm saying we need to do. Don't misquote me. What I'm saying is, if that was done, regardless, if they said we want to see you eating hamburgers more, it doesn't matter. The people drive the industry. It really doesn't matter. Whatever the people want, whatever the fans want, they're going to do. I promise you that.
So here's a sad reality, Ashley. What if the
It is a
people?
sad
No, no, no,
reality,
no.
but
I was about to ask a question. I was saying,
oh,
here's a sad
okay.
reality, Ashley. I said, what if the people really just don't give a fuck about who they're with? Honestly, if they really don't care that 50 just negated his first son, who's like 19 now, but he has a newborn with, as Rhodes mentioned, his mixed race wife or his mixed race baby mama. Like, if people don't care, how do you drive any type of change?
If people don't care, then they just don't care. You can't drive change when people don't care.
And that's why we're stuck in the position we're in right now.
Exactly, because people think it's cool.
I guarantee you this: if TMZ or Entertainment Tonight or any one of these media outlets continue to show black men and black women as a couple, and that became like the norm of what you see, and instead of just showing the quote unquote pretty couple or that quote unquote exotic person that this person is with, then maybe they will start to see the beauty in a black on black relationship.
They can see the beauty, bro, but it doesn't mean that that's going to drive their personal desires, though.
No, it will. Let me tell you, because people always want to just do what celebrities are doing. They want the shoes that they have. They want the cars that they have. They want to imitate their life.
Well, I
So
hate
if
those
they,
people then because those people sound like followers.
and that's what most of this world is or
Yeah,
So,
that's
are.
true.
so I'm
Yeah.
not
Followers.
trying. So I'm not trying to be with them though. And I guess
Okay, you're one
at the
person.
transition of the final, and I let this be the Wild Wild West. I let it be what it was, an organic conversation. But I really want to end this on the fact that we have a person who committed a travesty, a massacre in Las Vegas. This individual is named and he is known to, well, he's been killed at this point, but he has been known to basically reach out the window, shoot at people at a country music festival with people who are of a demographic that aren't necessarily ours, but we still feel empathy for them. We still feel sympathy for their families who are suffering through the grief. How do we move forward and say, you know what, even though you classify this man as what I'm reading right now off of Fox News, seeking a motive, Vegas police feds race to uncover what drove aggressively unfriendly gunman to kill. They
Oh
called
my
him
God.
an aggressively unfriendly, and this will be a screenshot. They said aggressively unfriendly gunman to kill.
Wow.
That's what Fox News is saying. How do we, as a culture of black people who suffer through what J.Rhodes has said numerous times, and what you've said, Ashley, even in contradiction of what Rose has said about us killing ourselves, of black people murdering each other, Chicago, Detroit, Flint, Atlanta, L.A., Compton. It don't matter. How do we overcome what the media is saying versus what our skin color tells us is it's not just us killing each other. It's not the narrative that they're telling us it is, but it's what people believe. How do we get past that to grow and to thrive without being succumbed to that bullshit?
By
I mean,
dialogues like these.
I agree with that. But also it's the
Dialogues like these.
numbers though. I mean, I hate to say this, but 700 people being murdered in a summer in south side of Chicago.
And
That
one thing, just for the
It,
people in
it
Vegas, I just
wasn't
want
for
to
the
say,
summer.
hold on. I just want to say 1 second. Stephen Paddock, that's his name. 64,
don't
died
say
in
his
it.
name.
Stephen Paddock, 64, died in his room. White male, shot over
Fi-
58 people who died, 200 who were injured,
500.
500 who were. See, I can't even keep up with the number.
No, 58 people were murdered, 500 injured.
That's what he
Okay,
said.
my
Oh,
right, but my
sorry.
point is, we are dealing with what is a domestic terrorist in this instance. I want to give respect to the fact that we, as black people, I say we, had nothing to do with this. Now,
Hmm.
if you listen to the Breakfast Club, they'll tell you in the morning, they'll say, you know, we were there 1 week ago, which is true. Charlemagne the God, Angela Yee, DJ Envy, they were at that same venue a week ago. And they could have been the ones that got shot. If they would have got shot, oh Lord, like if any person of color would have been the one that's targeted, it would have been all hell. But
No
because
witness.
Yes, it would have. Yes, it would have. Yes, it would have.
If they got shot, it would have been like, oh, Charlemagne was shot along with
Nah, nah, nah,
58
nah,
other
nah.
white
Ashley,
people.
Ashley,
I
stop.
guarantee it.
No, it wouldn't
Do
have.
you think it's gonna be a headline
It's not.
news?
I'm saying the fact that they shot this person who's white shot up a country music festival, which is why it's not making national news as far as people saying, "Oh, you know what? This person was targeting white people. This person was targeting country music fans." I even listened to the news this morning where they said that, "Oh, you know, there's a certain demographic that goes to country music festivals, so I don't know why they were shot. There's a certain demographic that goes to hip hop festivals, so you know, like that to me
Oh, well,
shows
you're
me."
saying, I see what you're saying. You're saying
Right.
because if it was a hip hop
Yes.
concert, then it
Exactly.
would have.
If it
Okay,
was
gotcha,
a Troy,
gotcha.
if it was a Troy Ave, and it was a situation where he got shot in the green room like he did, and guns are drawn and everybody's trying to protect themselves, blah blah blah. It's a national headline of here go another situation of niggas killing niggas, and that's where I
Right.
defend J.Rhodes because I feel like it's not always just niggas killing niggas. Like
Right.
But
it's not
earlier you
always
didn't
that.
defend him. But
No,
I'll
you
let
really
you.
did. Right,
I'll
he
let
really
you go
did.
ahead. Tell
Well,
Thank
us
you
how
for
you
calling that.
feel
Thank you for
about.
calling that out. Actually, he did. I mean, but I think look to your point. You just trying to say that hip hop has been associated with violence and aggression, and country music is not associated with
that's
that.
what I was trying to defend, and I
But rightfully
apologize.
so. And I'm
I
going to
apologize
defend
for that.
country music. You know
Right.
why? Because hip hop doesn't say, I'm going to shoot that motherfucker. I'm going to rape his wife. I'm going to go round.
Damn,
Like,
Ashley.
it does
Like,
not say that.
Jesus.
I mean, listen to Bobby Shmurda and the rest of those people. That's
Right.
exactly what it says. So, of course, it promotes violence. And
Nah,
I see
I
people,
can't believe the
oh, yeah, it
promotion.
does. Oh, yeah, it does.
It
I'm
does,
sorry.
Lip. You can't deny that. It
Yeah,
Yeah,
does,
you
Lip.
really can't.
out when
You
I
can't
listen to
deny
it. I'm like, oh shit, I'm gangster. Not gangster, don't have a gun. But it just gets
it.
you riled up. So no.
I mean,
I
right, not every song is that way, but in majority,
That's my point. That's my
mm-mm.
point. Is like it's like you can't say that because it was a country music festival. Oh my God, they don't deserve to be shot in the head because
They
they were
didn't
just celebrating.
say that they don't deserve. What they said was, and what the
mm,
point is,
mm,
that country music does not promote anger and violence and aggression the way hip hop does. So if I'm at a gospel
Right,
concert
but what
or
country music
country
does promote
concert,
is alcoholism and domestic violence and depression. That's what country music represents.
that's true.
That is true.
okay, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna get a gun.
But
But no, you're
but you
right.
can't
You're
negate.
right. You're right. You're right.
Okay, so what
You're
I'm
right.
saying is every genre of music, and I'm gonna end it with this. Every genre of music has their own like political constituency. So you have to look at the demographic. Rap music, hip hop, R&B, whatever. You could say we represent a certain demographic, majority black, but it's still a lot of
That's debatable.
violence. Well, yes, it is, but you could say that we represent, you know, a lot of lyrics that are prone to violence, prone to misogyny, etc. But in the same respect, with country music, you can't say that it's Christian music. It's still representing alcoholism. It's still representing abandonment. It's still representing depression. It's still representing domestic violence in those arenas of those people who are involved with it. So we have
But
no
you
idea why
can,
this person did what he did. We have no idea why he did what he did.
Right.
So
yeah. I mean,
to
he's dead
categorize it,
now.
but to categorize it and say that it was a lone gunman who had no intention of doing XYZ, but then if you have a situation like Troy Ave and you have Taxstone who was involved in the shooting with that, you say,
Yeah.
okay, this is just another black on black crime, another nigga shooting another nigga because of some street beef. Like everything that we do gets dumbed down to the lowest denominator, and everything that everyone else does gets raised up to the highest numerator. And that's the problem with our culture right now.
I feel
Yeah.
you, Lip, but I think it's not a fair comparison. I mean, we don't know. I'm pretty sure there may have been some people in that crowd who were carrying a gun. You know, maybe they had a license to carry a gun. That's not the story. You know, the story is this elderly man broke a window in his hotel and fired numerous rounds into a crowd at a country concert, as opposed to at a nightclub. Two gentlemen had an altercation. A bodyguard was murdered, and numerous men exchanged gunfire. And people were hit, you know, bystanders were hit. It's a different narrative. I understand what you're saying, the portrayal of it, but you really can't compare those two. I
It's
don't think.
apples and oranges.
You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. And I was just waiting for somebody to say that. And I appreciate you. C-Fri, what you got to say about this before we close it out? I'm going to start with you. Make your last point.
Okay, so the media, as we know, will perpetuate a lot of racial divides and a lot of inequalities between people of color and people of non-color. And I think having an outlet like this and extending it to the masses where, you know, the more people can hear it, the more people can weigh in, I think would start to alter that discussion and not make it so blatant to where quote unquote white media will just continue to use whatever terms they want to, you know, say who we are as a people. And as long as we have a voice and an outlet to put it out there, then we can start to change that narrative on how Black people are viewed in the eyes of the media. You know, in this social media age, a lot of people have their own opinions and they have a venue where they can voice it, and then they can also receive feedback. And that's what can help to change. I mean, as long as there's news corporations, as long as there's crime, there's people that are going to be watching it. But the way they view us is based on how they portray us. And if we portray ourselves differently, then I think we might start to get viewed differently. That's what I gotta say.
That's powerful.
All right, Ash.
I agree with that, and I'm gonna continue to drive home on that. If we maybe not portray ourselves and do some of these things that is actually being done. I mean, granted, the media does portray, you know, they switch it up a little bit, but there were, and I'm gonna, cause he says there's not 700, but I'm looking at an article right now. 700 people were murdered in Chicago in one summer. 700 people, Black people. Like we really have to think about those numbers and just we have to show a different us. Like we have to show our regal selves. We have to love one another. Like Farrakhan says, love thy brother. Marry those women you with, you know, the people you got all those kids by. You know, build a family, make it right. And maybe someday we could have our own country.
All right, Rhodes, you got it.
To go back to the original topic.
Bro, it's the final point. Say what your final point is. Get all the shit out that you got to get out.
Okay. We know that white media is going to protect white interests. Okay, so if Stephen, what's his name? Stephen Paddock was going crazy, shoot people because he just had a bad day or he felt that way, there's a chance that there could be propaganda made up about, oh, he joined Islamic faith 3 months ago. That could be true. It could be untrue. The fact that ISIS took claim of that could be true or untrue. What it does is it takes the onus off potential one white crazy person, and we can blame it towards a blanket enemy, terrorism. Going back to us, we do have to do better as far as like respecting ourselves, valuing life, but we have to also realize that when people are hurting, when people are not educated, when people don't value their own lives, they're going to do things that are asinine and irrational. I can never condemn or never condone the violence that takes place in a lot of urban communities, whether it's Chicago, Detroit, DC, Atlanta, New Orleans, whatever the case may be. But I would be remiss to say that all of this stems from somewhere, and it is up to us, quote unquote, enlightened, empowered Black people to not judge them, but to try to influence positive change. That's my 2 cents.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody on here really conveyed their point very well. And in closing, I will say for myself that we have a responsibility as citizens of this country to have empathy, meaning I don't know how it feels to lose a person. I don't know what it feels like to lose a family member. I may not even know what it feels like to lose a friend, but we have to have empathy to be able to say, you know what you're going through is a fucked up situation, and I'm going to have faith and I'm going to pray for your recovery, because right now we're going through something that no one wants to deal with. Not only is it the Vegas shooting, which we have our prayers up for that, not only is it the hurricanes that happen in Texas and Florida and Puerto Rico. It's our world is changing before us right now. So the most important thing that we can do is just spread love. Just show love to your fellow man or your fellow woman as much as you can, because that's all we have to give. There's not enough money in the world. There's not enough prayers and wishes in the world. Just kind of focus in on the energy that we are blessed to be where we are, and I want to share that blessing with as many people as we can. And I thank you as a blessing for my sis Ash to be on this podcast. Thank you.
All day.
My bro,
Much love.
J.Rhodes for being on this podcast. Thank you, bro.
Oh yeah, always a pleasure.
And of course, the big homie C-Fri. I appreciate it and I thank you, bro.
Hey, no problem. I appreciate you involving me with it. I had a great conversation.
Here we go. All right. So, like I said, I just want to thank everybody for being a part of this. This is Thinking Out Loud. And again, prayers up for the families that are suffering in Vegas, but prayers up for the families that are suffering abroad, and prayers up for everybody that's suffering anything right now, because we know that we all are going through some struggle. All we want to do is make it to the next one. We thank you for listening. This is Thinking Out Loud, and we out.
This episode of Thinking Out Loud was executive produced by J Lip. Music provided by Daisy Smith. Artwork and logo provided by Rob D. And sponsored by you, the people. We thank you for listening.